killing bush. I've got him at gunpoint.
They're pulling them out.
911. Advise ready for camp.
Welcome to another episode of War Stories. I'm Tom.
And I'm Chuck.
Dude, I'm super happy to have this guest returning, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty.
He's a good time.
Cool.
Yeah. So we have Major. Can I still call you Major?
Yeah, you just got to throw retired on the end now.
Yeah. Retired Major Patterson with us. Chuck, tell us about Major Patterson's resume for those who either don't remember or didn't hear his last episode.
So our last episode is basically about him in charge of Dark Horse. I want to say, was it? I'm not even gonna mess it up. I'm gonna butcher it, but it was Dark Horse. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it was Ronin 3. So I was a
yeah.
We talked. I was a platoon commander back in those days,
right?
Inside the Dark Horse battalion. Yeah,
right. And inside of there, we got into his crazy story, which was very, it was good, but it was also pretty sad, and we got into that. So if you guys haven't listened to it, go check it out. And then we also kind of got into that at the time he was working as like some sort of liaison with the studios and making sure they don't fuck up military movies or
yeah, but that's going to happen. They're going to fuck up no matter what.
That's why I retired a major. I failed at that. It was all good.
So that's his resume in a nutshell. I mean, he's got way too much to even be able to. I would have to look at his DD-214 and be able to go off of it and be like, okay, he's got this accolade, this accolade, this accolade, this medal, this for this. I mean, so
now I have a question because I wanted to look up what you were up to, and so you, without giving away where you're at or who you're working with, your current title is Mission Operations Engineer, but you're a civilian. That sounds like a very military title for a civilian. So
why don't you aerospace company?
It's got to be. There's got to be some secret squirrel shit, right? That's so vaguely specific that there's more to the story. So welcome back, Joe. How are you, sir?
I'm great. And look, I got to be honest. I'm just stoked you guys reached out to me, and I'm really honored to be in the presence of you guys. I really support what you do. And I just can't say enough good things. I'm happy to be back, and I just I hope I don't piss away this opportunity.
No, I don't think we will at all. Because we talked about it the last time. We haven't even begun to get into all the really we spent some time on some bigger stories, but we haven't even begun to just get into the little ticky tacky this one time at band camp type stories that just inevitably flow. Plus, I know you have tons of others, but more importantly, we want to talk about, we like to follow up with people. And I thought what your career is not in the military anymore. You're retired, but you are military adjacent. And you were saying that you said that your actual title is Mission Operations Engineer. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So what is that a bunch of bullshit to smoke screen a title, or is that how does that work? Right.
Yeah. Titles aside, basically what I do now is I work for a tech company called Anduril Industries. They were founded by a man. No, actually, ironically, the furthest thing from that, Palmer Luckey is our, the creator, owner, and founder of our company. And, he invented Oculus.
Shit.
I think I met him.
Wait a minute. Okay, hold on. Time out.
I think I met him in a fucking shitbox hotel off of I'm not going to say where because it'll give away where I work, but in some vicinity of a city off of a major boulevard that starts the V, and
so I'll say this. I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about too, because I'm pretty sure I read an article about the man who invented Oculus.
For sure, met that
and then said the Silicon Valley can go F itself. Took his money
That's
and then
sounds-
Oh,
started.
I thought he was a tweaker.
No, dude, he started.
First
he,
met
he
him.
he sold everything that he sold all of his stake, I guess, in Oculus and Meta, and then took his money and against what everybody in Silicon Valley wanted him to do, he launched a military. He's Tony Stark, dude. He launched like a military
Badass, dude.
contracting business. And maybe you can't say, maybe you can. The article that I read discussed virtual border walls using drone technology and artificial intelligence integrated with almost like facial recognition, motion tracking, all those kinds of technologies combined, so that you could honestly have drone patrols on the border. Now that was his big company launch speech, was about how that's where he wanted to get someday with this portable wall fence drone shit technology. Am I completely off base?
No, you're spot on.
Hey,
wow,
reading.
I'm telling you, I met him in a shitbox little motel where we would go to find a bunch of tweakers and hypes and try to arrest them in prostitution. And we saw these two kids who kind of like were like, they're either trying to score drugs or they don't belong here. So I was like, they're trying to score drugs. And we went over to them because they were sitting there with their fucking door open. And I'm like, hey guys, what are you doing? And are you here to buy drugs? Straight up, because they look like young college kids. And I was like, what the fuck? This is really like, this is not the time and place. So they're either here for really bad shit or they just don't know where they're at. And they didn't know where they were at. And they're like, well, we're going to stay here. I'm like, fuck, I don't know. You couldn't pay me to sleep in those beds. And I was like, what are you doing? And they're like, we made this thing called an Oculus. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And they're like, it's like virtual reality. And I was like, really? That's kind of fucking cool. Let me see it. So they pull out these cases and they open it. I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be pretty fucking cool in here. Dude, it was like made out of cardboard and shit. It was the fucking first prototype. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And I didn't really think anything of it. And then I was like, that's fucking weird. All right, guys, well, you're in a bad neighborhood. Close that fucking door. Don't come out until the morning. Come out in the morning and leave. So I gave him some
I think those were probably the guys that brought the Oculus to
no, they made
Joe's
it.
guy. No, and I know, but I think your boss is the one who basically brought it to market, right?
Yeah. So I mean, like the company was.
I wonder if I met him.
The company was founded.
I don't think so.
On the backs of like, 6 dudes that were just wicked smart,
right,
and wicked patriots. And the first target really was like law enforcement, specifically the Border Patrol, to get them the stuff that they need and circumvent the bureaucracies that get in the way of getting law enforcement and military the stuff they need.
Right. Because there were elements of politics playing, like, oh, we don't want to supply this equipment to law enforcement because blah, blah, blah. There was some political, like, I guess, government interference on the political side of things or political pressure that was causing some of these companies to not want to do business with law enforcement. Is that?
I don't know. I that's not really my
okay,
I guess, expertise, but I can say this. I can say that the company, what makes Anduril a unicorn in a lot of ways is we have found ways. So like the government itself has put in place all of these bureaucracies and obstacles into funding and equipping and manning their federal agencies, including the military. And
right.
And for good reason, right? Like it prevents fraud, waste, and abuse and corruption and so on. But at the same time, like really, I mean, would you guys prefer to use an iPhone 4 today or an iPhone, 14?
Right. It can be demoralizing to have the oldest, like you're like, I can go to the store and at Best Buy, I can pick up better technology than the piece of shit the government just issued me. Because let's face it, the speed of government is not
right.
Like you have the worst shit because by the time it passes through committee, it's already outdated.
Yeah. Yep. And then by the time you get it, it's outdated and then it's been purchased. So that's it. So like what we found a way to do is, circumvent that in ways that are legal and make sense to get the people, the equipment and gear and tech that they need that's competitive with our adversaries, right? Like it does no good to be hunting for, the first version of DJI drones because the newest version came out yesterday. And so our company takes pride in building everything in America, or inside, the allies. Like, so there's it's very patriotic. The culture, I mean, there's a giant American flag when you go into the headquarters.
That's
the
sick.
culture is meant to like recruit young college graduates away from Silicon Valley, where they're going to be stuck doing engineer work on a factory line. And we bring them to our place where we're like, hey, build us the next cool drone. And they go to work and they do it and they build it. And you can, I mean, like, Chuck, you could give me like an idea. I could draw a napkin sketch and take it to these engineers, and they'll have you a prototype by Friday. You know what I mean? Like in 7 days, they will turn that idea into a thing. And
that's cool,
right? Because engineering is not specifically political, and so if you've got money and you've got ideas and you've got funding to get engineers to invent great stuff, a lot of times they're like, we just want to invent the best stuff, and other companies, I think, probably maybe only support them inventing or engineering, especially the big companies that can pay and innovate. They're leaning to one side. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Like you have like the big prime defense companies like Lockheed and Boeing and whatever, and they subscribe a lot to what we call or what's widely known as cost plus contracting, where they get the order and then they hire against that order and start building it. Whereas we identify a need, we build the thing, and if you want it, we've got it, right? Like we can give it to you tomorrow. And so basically, I mean, I'm really speaking outside of my lane. I'm a boot, man. Like I'm like the brand new guy in the company.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah, it attracts veterans like crazy.
I was gonna say, do they hire vets? Because I'm gonna need a job.
I can't tell you, man. Like
Jack's already pumped.
The vet community inside Anduril is big, but it's not outweighed by, like, we have more like super smart people, right? Like the electrical engineers, electronic engineers, and so on. They hire vets because we speak the military. Our customers are the DoD, right? Like, and so we speak the language. We know what the young Lance Corporal or PFC or specialist needs. We have our network and our contacts, and we can, like my young Lance Corporals that I had back in 2008. They're first sergeants and sergeants major now, and I can really like call that guy and be like, hey, what do you guys need? Like, what's the complaints that you guys have? And then we take that back and we build it. And and so I mean, like, the company's growing big time. Like when I got hired,
you're tapped into the community.
Yeah,
we're talking offline.
We're listening, and that's like the mission. The mission is always the warfighter. It's never it's not the colonel. It's not the general.
Right.
It's not the politician. It's like, what does the dude on the deck need?
Right.
To kill that bad guy over there. And,
right.
And that's what we pride ourselves in providing. And so it attracted me immediately, and I applied and I got hired, and now I'm on the Marine Corps account, which is fitting.
Sure.
I run.
Do they have law enforcement accounts?
We work with the Border Patrol. The Border Patrol is actually our first and largest customer.
Great. That was the drone thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, now we have up to, I don't even know how many pieces of equipment that we have aligned across the border, but
sure. That's awesome.
Expensive.
That's crazy, because as soon as you started telling me who, like, oh, this company does blah, blah, we used to be Oculus. I'm like, nope. I've read the whole article about how this guy abandoned Silicon Valley and basically took his money and backed his beliefs.
Yeah,
and
it's really cool. And that's why we're effective. Is his billions of dollars. He funds all of our stuff. We build it first and then we sell it, instead of waiting for someone to be like, hey, can you build us something? No, he eats the costs, and
that's that red tape.
It's innovation for the sake of innovation, and it's not like, well, we want you to build it because we're going back into history, but that's what my brain does because I love history. You go back to the F-117, right? The F-117 Nighthawk, Desert Storm 1. It makes its debut at its coming out party, and it's this amazing little diamond aircraft that people are like, what the hell is this, like a starfighter? and
Rex house in Baghdad.
right, just freaking ate their lunch. Right, this thing was amazing. Right, and nobody had ever seen the F-117 before, but that was like what 1991, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cut to 19 late 50s, early 60s when the U.S. government said, "Hey, you know what? We should really develop a plane that has a reduced radar signature based on its shape." And they put out a contract, and a bunch of companies came up with these half-scale mock-ups. And this is again, this late 50s, early 60s. They came up with this mock-up for the F-117, and the government said, "Here's a bunch of money. Go make it fly." Well, that was them saying, "Here's a bunch of money. Go make it work." But you're talking about, hey, I wonder what we could do. And then you just come up with an idea. You don't have to reverse engineer anything. You're just engineering.
Yep.
And those innovations they come from a very different place. They come out of creativity instead of necessity, which I think is a much better place to pursue.
Well
Yeah,
said.
instead of bringing up the sketch and the half fucking mock-up, they're like, hey, come outside. We want to show you something.
Right.
See that thing? We made it. It flies.
Yeah.
And they're like,
Right.
cool. I want 20 of them.
Right.
Yeah.
And then put some guns on it. They're like,
Right.
oh,
Right.
watch this. It's got guns.
We do that every week, man. Actually, we have several test sites where our engineers will build something, and then we have we have lands where we'll go out and we'll test it, and then we'll bring, like, when we're happy with it, like, hey, like, Marines or Air Force, come see what we got for you today. And then
Who
when we
can I
tell
send
them-
my resume to?
yeah,
No, here's what I want. The department that I want to
work.
work in, I want to work in the department that is the put a gun on it department,
Yeah.
where the engineers bring me a new piece of technology and I go, "This is cool. What does it do?" And then they finish explaining what it does. And then they go, "Awesome. Can you put a gun on it?" I want to work in that department where I just tell people to put a gun on things.
That's basically every department we have. It's pretty cool. It's crazy. It's crazy when, coming from a military background, going through like our warehouse where dudes are rolling around on hoverboards and, skateboards, and they, like, they're just these wild, thinking big brain people.
75% of your design team has autism in some way, shape, or form.
And they're just fantastically
they're brilliant.
smart. Oh my
Brilliant.
God. I'm like, I remember like my first week on the job, I was like, hey, I know nothing. I'm like, hey, I noticed that I work on the counter drone team. I'm like, hey, I noticed like my camera's not as clear or whatever. And like within seconds, I get responses on my phone like, hey, we're gonna get in there and do this and do this. And like in 5 minutes, my system was like scary.
Right.
Like,
Wow.
holy crap, man. Like, this is amazing.
That's
So
so
they
cool.
get off on it too. They love it.
Yeah, they really do. And it's
They
like,
do.
I think that's what attracts, it's pulling people over. But I'll say this, like, working here, the first thing when you get onboarded, the CEO himself comes and talks to every single new hire. And he makes it very clear, like, you work in a defense tech company. Like, you have to be okay with that. Like, we're not going to have these like issues where,
Right.
you don't want to make something that's going to be weaponized or whatever. Like,
Yeah, we make sure that
years-
kills people. Be cool with it or get the fuck out.
yeah, basically. Yeah. And then like one of our chief strategists, he authored a book called Kill Chain, which is kind of like mandatory reading now for DoD employees. And it really talks about like, how do we, as a military, like, there's too much information on the battlefield. How do we cut those links in the chain out between, for the young guy, he learns of something, and how long does it take him to kill it? And
Right.
like, how do you shorten that in the greatest amount of time? And that's what our systems really do.
That's
Is
so
they
cool.
take all of those, like, and for those of you guys who, like, or any of your listeners who've been in combat and know, like, depending on what level of combat you've been in, the like ROE, like rules of engagement, or what your boss is watching, or like, how do you execute the kill? In some cases, it's really easy. But in a lot of cases, when it's like high value targets, you need a lot of stuff. And so like our job really that we look at is like trying to take all of that guesswork out and just be like, there's a target, it's verified, kill or no kill, you select it. And
Yep.
Wow.
you take the red or blue pill.
Right.
And,
It's like having a delete key, only it's a smite key on your keyboard. You're like,
Yeah.
smite or not to smite. We can do either.
yeah.
You
It's
know,
pretty sick, man. I'm stoked to be.
smash or pass.
I'm just count my blessings that I was able to transition smoothly
Wow,
into
lucky.
kind of work.
And
I don't
I
see
did not.
myself ever leaving.
I did not think that I was going to get this fascinated by the update, but I knew that the title sounded cool, and that's awesome.
He gave me a hard
Congratulations.
on.
I know, right? Like,
I'm
I
like,
want
fuck,
to.
dude, I want to work for
Let's
that
be
company.
partners. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so for those of you that are veterans out there, or for current or former law enforcement, or anybody that's looking for Captain America's LLC. This
Fucking
guy
Tony
sounds
Stark
like, I know,
Incorporated.
Tony Stark
Fuck.
Inc. Stark Industries. If you want to work first. Anyway, so that's awesome. I appreciate you coming back, and I appreciate you sitting down and
Wow.
rapping with us. I'm actually the other day I was working with a police officer that I have to have deal with professionally, and he's a Marine. And I was telling him, oh yeah, my buddy Chuck is a Marine, and I knew Chuck had been talking to you, and I was like, yeah, love the Marines, joking around with them. And then I told him a story, and I said, what's amazing is we all give each other crap, but there's a point at which you can give somebody the wrong crap, if that makes sense. And we were talking about how two cops, and I was sitting there at breakfast when it happened, these two cops, both car partners working for the same agency, one had been in the military and one had not. And the one who had not been in the military tells my buddy, who is a Marine and a deputy sheriff, a Marine joke. And I have never seen a cop come unglued that fast and be ready to come over a table and throttle his partner than to watch my buddy get super pissed off at a guy who's never even been in the military telling a very, very, very like edgy Marine joke. And so I wanted to commend the Marines, especially because apparently the Marine Corps bond is even stronger than the bond of being in a car with your law enforcement partner.
You don't always like your partners in the car, okay?
I know. It's really that's honestly probably more of what it was than the other.
Yeah.
But
Well, I tell you this, like, and I think this relates a little bit. The movie, I have this movie brain. The
me
movie,
too.
The movie End of Watch. So I don't know what the perceptions are of this movie inside the law enforcement community, but the bond that happens between the two partners, right? Like, I relate to that very well. So if that's like any part of accurate,
it's 99.9% accurate. The point.
Yeah.
The 0.1% they were missing is it's supposed to be a little. They're supposed to be a little bit closer.
Oh,
So it's loosely based upon two partner officers in the Los Angeles Police Department. One of them, which I know pretty
and it's
well,
incredibly accurate.
I love this movie. This is one of my favorite. This is one of my favorite movies out there. Period.
Right.
Yeah, it's
but
good. It's
that movie
accurate.
does a good job of really showing the nature of battle buddies and their relationships there. And that's an interesting thing, because I've watched a lot of war movies. I love war movies. I love cop movies. One of the things that I don't, and maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've seen other movies that are both military and law enforcement, and I think none of them has ever gotten as closely accurately representing the battle buddy relationship as that kind of relationship did.
Yeah, I watch it and even showed it. We like with my Marines, like my platoon sergeant, for example. Like, that's how we view ourselves. So it's like it's a better. Like, the End of Watch movie about police officers is a great representation of how the military bonds are. It's not like you're watching a war movie and like, oh, that's us. No, we watch a cop movie and like, that's us.
Right.
Yeah, I really got it. It's a heartbreaking movie, but it's also great. Like when they keep calling the boot, it's like,
right.
Like, oh man, like, yeah,
that's old school.
That's old school, but it's also, I mean, obviously a lot of veterans get into law enforcement, but a lot of veterans get into trouble too. Like, it's not, I mean, it's a smaller percentage of veterans that get into law enforcement than it is that of veterans that get into trouble. However, that being said, law enforcement is still a small percentage of the population. So veterans make up a large percentage of the police officer culture and population. So I think there's a lot of that crossover where, you know, and part of it's just culture, but also part of it's the nature of what we do. You can't, no atheists in a foxhole, right? You can't do what we do without seeing the darkest of humanity. And then you have to employ these tactics, these relationships, these bonds with the other person. Your wife hasn't seen that shit. Your kids haven't seen that shit. And if you had it your way, you would make sure they never saw that shit.
Yeah.
Right.
But your partner's been right there next to you. And so you can say some of the funkiest, nastiest, most insulting, darkest shit because it comes from a place of love. And other people just their heads would explode if they had that kind of relationship with somebody.
Right. Yeah. That movie affected me in so many ways, as it brought back memories from Afghanistan combat, right? Like,
right.
Even those on the streets of LA is just like, and then it also highlights like what a lot of your friends are doing, like the battles that are going on with like cartels and things like
right.
It almost does like a disservice to recruiting because it's like, holy shit, that's like you got to be ready to go to war, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at the drop of a hat, or pin drop, like the drop of a pin, you can fucking be in the shit at a fucking stoplight. You could be in the shit in the thick of it, just on a regular like loud party call. Like it could be any call can turn into that, and so it's like you're always wired tight. You're always hyper vigilant, and then in really busy areas in law enforcement, it's like. It's like in the military, you go on a deployment, in the Marine Corps, it's like 6-7 months. And in longer cases, it's like 8 or 9. And then the Army, it's like 12, 13, 14 months. But in these big agencies, it's a deployment every day for 12 hours or 10 hours. And it's in dangerous fucking locations, dangerous areas. And you have to have that talk every day if you're with a new person, like, hey, this is what's going to happen if it goes down. This is where my gun is. This is where my backup is. This is where my rounds are. This is where my backup rounds are. This is where my go bag is. This is where my tack shit is. This is where my rifle is. This is where my extra rifle rounds are. This is where my tourniquet is. This is where my other tourniquet is. This is where my IFAK is, and it's like these things. And you gotta have these conversations and they get really fucking dark. And you're like, hey, if for some reason someone has a gun to my fucking head, take that fucking shot.
Right.
It's like you have to have these talks, or you're like, don't fucking take it because I don't trust you. You're gonna shoot me.
That's your car partner. So that's really like, who am I sitting next to?
And then the ones who have been through the shit together, they're the tightest bond. They have the tightest group of officers that you'll ever meet. And, and some of them are in law enforcement, some are vets and some aren't. But it's a fucking deployment every single time. And I've never really said that. I was like, whatever. And then I was talking to a Marine Corps buddy of mine and, I was telling him where I work and, whatever, and the shit I've been through. He's like, fuck, dude. He's like, you've seen more action than most of us because that's a deployment every fucking day. Like you're constantly getting in the shit. And I'm like, yeah. And I never worked I didn't work in really crazy fucking areas because it was just really far from me. And I did my training in some pretty nasty area.
But even the areas that you did work, and I'll say that you're right.
I mean, they're still bad. I've worked some pretty shitty areas.
But I will tell you from personal experience, Joe, I think that you will know what I'm talking about. Al Mampry, who was the medic portrayed in Band of Brothers. He was in the 101st Airborne Easy Company in the scene where his lieutenant goes down in the field under sniper fire and he goes out and bandages up his lieutenant in the middle of the field, right? That's the scene that they show in Band of Brothers. Well, I met that man and I sat with him for a minute and I chatted with him and I said, it's an honor to meet you, sir. And, talked about his service and he said, oh, did you serve? And I said, no, sir, I didn't have that honor. I'm actually a police officer, retired police officer. And he looked at me and he goes, oh, well, thank you for your service. And I said, no, I mean, what we do is nothing compared to, he goes, no. You're thinking about it all wrong. And I said, what do you mean? And this man says to me, he says, my deployment was 3 years. My war was 3 years. Yours is 25.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way, but I
Yeah.
think that Chuck brings up a valid point, and I think that's what you're talking about, Joe, is when you see car partners develop that level of bond and you recognize it, it's because they developed that bond over the course of having been deployed together for however long they've been stuck in a car dealing with radio calls.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can only imagine you know, like what Chuck's talking about, like you go from zero, you know, from white to black heart rate wise.
Oh yeah.
And so like at least on a military deployment, like when I leave the wire, I'm already elevated, like in a yellow, you know, like I know
Right.
like some shit could go down, but like I'm not sitting at a stoplight, like having like bullshit with my buddy, and then all of a sudden all hell breaks loose, which, you know, plays you know, does a mess on mental health, you know, like that's where like those cases come from, when you're relaxed and then all of a sudden
Right.
hell breaks loose, because then after that, when you're relaxed at home or in church or wherever, you're thinking you like, so I mad respect for the law enforcement guys. Like they have a harder job than the military had in combat in the last 20 years, because it's like, and then like how do you fight, like me just fighting complacency with my guys in a 6-month deployment, right? Like how do you, you know, like, hey, we've been on 3 patrols and haven't been shot at, keep, you know, like don't get complacent. Well,
Right.
25 years in a cop car, you know, and maybe
How many traffic stops?
yeah,
I was just
right?
about to bring that up.
Yeah,
Because you can't
It's
stay
like,
hyper vigilant. 12
Well, that's
hours a
they
fucking
tell
day.
you you don't want to be hyper vigilant. That's a symptom
No,
of
but,
PTSD,
like,
and you're like,
so-
okay, but it
You
does.
don't also
It
you
takes
also
the
don't
edge
want
off.
right, and you also don't want tombstone courage, or you
Right.
don't want to be so fucking complacent to where you're like, it's just another day of lame patrol, and you're just
Right.
fucking out there. Next thing you know, you get fucking smoked. You know, look at those 2 deputies, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. They were on an overtime shift. I believe they're on an overtime shift in South LA, or the southern part of LA that they patrol, and they were at, I want to say, a busway or some fucking rail place, just parked because they're doing like an overtime shift, right? And they're just chilling down there, and then all of a sudden this asshole comes up and opens fire on them, and the female has to place a tourniquet. She gets shot, her partner gets shot, fucking damn near mortally wounded, and she's fucking shot to
But
shit.
this is
She
the
has to
same shit
place
that happens in
a
combat.
tourniquet. Yeah, and you're like, holy fuck, like, and I can't tell you how many times you go on like an overtime shift, or you're out there and you're just like, oh my god, just let it be fucking over. And unfortunately, you're complacent because you're just like, I'm so tired, I just want to go home, you know, or you've had a long day at court, now you have to go to work, and you've had 3 hours of fucking sleep, and you're on 2 bangs, and you're about to drink another bang or a rock star or fucking whatever, you know, you're 4 rock stars deep, and you're having the
Gay.
jitters, and you're
You
like,
said
I just want
bang.
to sleep, dude. And it's like you can't, you end up becoming complacent, and it's you have to recognize that, but and it's hard to recognize it when you're in it, and you're like, I'm fucking complacent right now. But it's like cops are in my opinion, a master of multi fucking tasking, because they can be, you know, shooting the shit with their partner, but then they're scanning constantly. And you see that so often when they're not at work, especially when you have family members who are close to you or friends, and you're out and about, and they're just fucking constantly doing this. And I've seen some forums and stuff like that where they're like, oh, that's fucking stupid for you to sit with your back behind to the door, you know, or if you can't sit with your back to the door when you're with your family, you're fucking stupid. And I'm like, no, dickhead, you work at Podunk Police Department where you don't get involved in anything, or haven't ever been involved in anything. And you have guys who are like, I can't put my back against the door. I don't know what's going to happen, because I've seen the worst of humanity time and time and time and time and time and time again for years. And you're like, I'm not doing it. I'm not placing myself in that position, because you have seen the shit that happens when people become super duper complacent, even on their days off. So it's like this weird quasi thing where you're like, you're somewhat complacent, but at the same time, you're so elevated all the fucking time that it's like this weird middle ground that you're.
Well, so imagine if
teetering
you
on.
were deployed for 20 years to the same area.
You'd be
Right?
fucking
You were
basket
deployed
case.
for 20 years to the same area, right? Your fob or your base or whatever it is, right? And it was always in a hostile area, right? For 20 years. And then you were told, hey, you can either live in the same town where your fob is, or you can live, 20 to 25 miles within commuting distance to your fob. And that's where you keep your family. So the bottom line is, we don't want you any further than 30 miles away from your fob or from your deployment at all times. So even when you're on vacation or on your days off or you're at the grocery store, you're still only going to be 30 miles away from where you deploy.
Right.
Yeah, dude, yeah. At least for where I've been, no thanks.
Now, exactly. Now there's a difference, but here's the thing. There are areas of Los Angeles. There are areas of New York. There are areas of Miami. There are areas of Chicago. And through the different eras, it's gotten better and worse, right? Like we're experiencing an unprecedented level of violence against police officers. But here's the thing. When it was the Civil War and guys were out there with the, trapdoor Springfields, and they were out there with, their Remington Army conversions, and they were all this stuff. And then the Civil War was over and it was the Wild Wild West. And all of a sudden you had the guys who were Civil War veterans in law enforcement. And then the other guys who were Civil War veterans that hadn't adjusted as well were robbing trains and robbing banks. Right. But it was still those same ambush Civil War tactics, that the gunfight at the OK Corral, or, all the gunfights on Tombstone, the streets of Tombstone, or Dodge City, or Wyatt Earp, or any of these guys, they were all bringing their combat experiences from the good side and the bad side. Mm-hmm. And then you got the Roaring 20s and the 30s with Prohibition and gangsters. We had guys that went to World War I and they came home and they had knowledge of machine guns and automatic weapons, and they either went bad or they went good, So it's been the same struggle.
You see that now with OAF and OEF guys who went over in the Army and they did their time and they come back, and then they either got into law enforcement, or there are some that were kind of quasi near the gangs or were in gangs, and this is very taboo and dark and no one likes to talk about it, but there are been gangsters who have gone into the Army, into the Marine Corps, into all branches of the service, learned skills, came out to better their gang. It is not, it's not like it doesn't happen. It happens very fucking often. And you see that especially when shit gets caught on camera with gangsters, because you're like, what the fuck? Are they in a diamond formation? Are they in a staggered column? What the fuck? That looks like a patrol. That looks like a patrol formation. And then, oh, now they're coming on target. Oh, what the fuck? Like, you're like, whoa, and I've seen this shit firsthand with a group of gangsters doing a hit on someone from across the street, and they go in from a diamond formation to all online, fucking blast a dude, and then just fucking go back out into a staggered column, hop into a getaway car and bounce. And you're like, whoa, that was fucking military tactics right there if I've ever fucking seen it. And it happens so frequent, so it's still constantly going on. It's wild.
So Joe, what are some of your best, because we're talking about the similarities, we're talking about a lot of things involving the similarities between deploying and being in the military, but what are some of the moments that you can remember that watching End of Watch kind of reminds you of, like obviously there's all these great brotherhood moments, so we always focus on like, oh my god, I was in this moment in the shit, or this donkey was on fire, or all these crazy things that have happened, but sometimes we forget to think about the fun moments and the awesome moments. So what are some of your fondest memories from your time in the Marine Corps?
Oh man, I've got so many. If I'm gonna, so first off, there's a part, I'll hit the End of Watch comment. It's like there's a part in End of Watch where I want to say they're at a wedding or whatever, and Jake Gyllenhaal's character is bringing up something, and dude's like, no, shut up, or no, the wife is talking about like some kind of sex thing at the wedding thing, and I don't know, they just kind of get in trouble, but I'm having a hard time recalling the whole scene, but
no, it's they're getting grossly drunk and flirtatious with each other, talking about like their sexual relationship and preferences, and doing each other's wives and doing each other. But they're laughing their ass off, drunk as shit, and their wives are like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, and I think the wife is like I think she's a little tipsy, and she's giving advice to the newlywed.
Right, like this is what it is.
You got to keep it, because they get petitioned all the time when they're on the streets. It's like that little moment is like that happens with us all the time, where it's like, your buddy better than better than your wife knows your buddy, you know, and
Right.
so those kinds of just right out of the movie, and then all the shit talking that's in the cop car that you see is just like
Oh,
my platoon sergeant and I, he's the one that showed me the movie, and I was like, dude, this is us, man. He's like, I know, it's fucking great because he's like right out of like Tijuana. I'm like right out of Oklahoma. It's like we're like the exact characters
right.
that were in the movie.
Crazy white boy,
Yeah,
Vato Loco. So
yeah.
now let me ask you this then. When you saw that, and this just occurred to me to ask you this, when you saw that and you saw the relationship between the two cops, were you surprised at all about the idea that cops would act like this? Were you like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
No, a little bit, yeah. Like I was a little surprised because I was like, my God, they're just like us. Like this is it. It made me want to be a police officer, to be honest, because I was like, man,
yeah, that'll do that.
I can have this feeling and this bond with this dude. Like, you know, people that don't do the kind of work that we've done, don't understand like how close you can be with another male, right? Like
Yeah,
the fact that you can say I love you to another grown man
right,
and not bat an eye, and
right.
just that kind of bond. Like you don't get that. I think we as men like look for that
Yeah,
everywhere.
for sure.
It's whether you had a brother or a father in your life or not. You can establish that kind of like close emotional bond with another male. And I'm sure it's the same for females on, you know, in the police with another female, like a senior, like, you know, I think it's just a respect and love thing. It doesn't have to be, but like
But I
to
think
me,
male female it happens too. If you
Yeah,
meet
it's
the
true.
right female or the right,
Yeah.
you know, like I've met women in law enforcement that I'm like, fuck yeah, bitch. When I call for help, I want you to be the bitch that comes
yeah,
to help.
yep. Yeah, I
You
know
know,
exactly what you're talking about. And it's like, yeah, so I think if we're, you know, we're talking about that, you know, specific movie and like me being on the Marine Corps side, I actually watched it when I was in Afghanistan with my platoon sergeant. And it's like, man, like it reminded me that humanity is good. So it's like I always go back to this idea when you watch the news, and I without being on a soapbox here, but like, you know, like I grew up in southern Louisiana and Oklahoma, and I go to Marine Corps boot camp, and my bunkmate is a dude from like the inner city of Compton, never interacted with white dudes before. You know, I grew up in Louisiana, but so like I like interacted with all sorts of people, but we bonded, and then like as now I'm 43 years old and I'm looking back, and then think back to my infantry time and like all the different ethnicities and races and religions and all these things that are on mainstream media that are so
right.
divisive. And I'm like, man, if you guys would just shut the fuck up for a minute and just like these are first world problems.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Because when
Yeah.
I was deployed or any of my time in the military, my closest people didn't look like me at all, and we didn't even necessarily have the same political beliefs or religious beliefs, and we would take a bullet for each other and without batting an eye. And what is it about our profession that breeds that? I think should be researched and investigated and communicated to our population, because like I see all this stuff on the news with, you know, with all these, and I'm not discounting racial issues and you know, male female stuff, but it's like from my perspective and from my standpoint, I was exposed to the best in human nature,
Yeah.
even in the middle of the chaos of war, where people are trying to kill each other. They weren't trying to kill the black guy, the white guy, the brown guy or gal. They were trying to kill an American. And we didn't, we were trying to kill the people that were killing us, regardless of what you like. It was like, it sounds so simplistic and brutal, but
Kill them before they kill you.
yeah. And it's that simple. And in the process of that,
Right.
we all, you know, humanity really comes out, and like the innate things that are inside of us really present themselves. And it's like one of those things where it's like, man, I really, being careful with my comments, like I really wish like people, like the entire American population, would have the experiences that we've had, because we wouldn't be talking about this dumb, even though that's wishing like the most horrible, brutal things on people to expose them to. Like you would quickly find that, wow, we are so similar in so many ways. Like we need to stop talking about all this bullshit and like solve bigger problems.
I agree for the most part. However, I know you're like, that would be like wishing the most hateful, hurtful shit on people, but I'm because I'm kind of an asshole. I look back and I go, hey, you know what? Before the Industrial Revolution, before like, machinery, back when the like ox had to pull the plow and you had to sow the land, everything was hard. Everything was hard. Like you saw people die in your house. Like you saw things just get destroyed in front of you. Natural disasters were terrible. There was no Red Cross. There was no shelter. Like you had like 18 children because the first 12 of them were going to die. Right. Life was hard. And when life is that hard, we as humans rise up and pull together. 9/11 is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Right. So I honestly, with no reservations and without apologies, with the exception of to contradict Joe, I think everybody does need to see the evil, awful, nasty. Like you need to bond together and realize, you know what? The fact that your fucking Wi-Fi doesn't work in Starbucks as fast as it does in Pete's is not a problem. Right. The fact that the actress playing this character isn't actually that like, oh my gosh, this guy's playing a guy in a wheelchair, but he's not actually in a wheelchair. Well, it's called acting, motherfucker. And if that's what you're like, if that's what your mind is wrapped around, if those are your first world problems, if you're bitching about like the fact that you're wearing real fur instead of faux fur, well, you know what? You have the privilege of bitching that you're not freezing your fucking ass off on the tundra.
Mm-hmm.
So, or what pronouns you're going to go by.
Oh my God. So I honestly think that our lack of necessity, our lack of struggle, our lack of adversity is actually making us so lazy and so we're making up shit to be mad about because we have to struggle against something.
Right.
And when life is no longer something we're struggling against, all we do is we struggle like that, literally pissing into the wind, shaking your fist at windmills, like fuck you. And you're like, dude, seriously, you don't have it that bad. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. No, dude, I'm on board with all of that. It's yeah, but I mean, like, what's the solution? It's like I don't know.
But you and I have it. You and I have the solution. Like we could seriously.
I think people should go into the military.
Right. Mandatory service.
At least 2 fucking years. Come on. Okay. Don't be a pussy.
How about this? You don't even have to join the military. You turn 18. You got to either join a church mission, an approved like nonprofit church mission program where you go to fucking Botswana and you build mosquito nets and huts for people that don't have clean water.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And you do that for fucking 2 years, right? A real church mission, or you fucking go to Habitat for Humanity where you build homes, like affordable housing in the United States for poor families, or you go volunteer at a soup kitchen for 2 fucking years, or you go get deployed to a foreign country in the military for 2. But regardless, whatever you have to actually dedicate 2 years of your life when you turn 18 to serving someone other than your own fucking self.
Yeah. Well, you just hit my thesis to my kids, which is the exact guidance I gave them, which is, look, you don't have to join the military, but I've raised my kids with a servant mentality to the country in which they live in. And so if they decide to go to the military, great. If they decide to be a postal worker or a police officer or a fireman, there's many ways to serve this nation.
Right.
But the servant mentality is important to them. So
right.
It seems like they're taking service. Yeah, it seems like they're taking that path. So we shall see.
Now, since we've been talking about this, it's kind of heavy. What is, real quick, rapid fire, what's one of the funniest things you've probably seen one of your junior Marines do? Because I know we do some dumb shit. I can tell you one of mine when I saw one of my junior Marines do. He fucking chased me around his fucking barracks room with a he shit on his fucking hand. Basically, he had fucking shit on his toilet paper and chased me around. And we really couldn't go outside because we were trying to skate and we were trying to lay low to have an extra long lunch. So we couldn't be out on the deck of the second or third floor barracks. So we had to stay inside with the windows drawn. And this motherfucker was a collegiate goddamn wrestler. So it's not like I can fucking bite him off because he's a big motherfucker and he could shoot on me and have me pinned down. Man, and that's just one of them. So what's one of the funny things that you've seen your junior Marines do? Because they always do dumb shit.
Well, I'll keep it in the spirit of some alcohol incidents, I guess.
Yeah.
The first one that comes to mind is drinking drinking on the beach, right? So Marines drinking on the beach, young guy.
As one does.
Yeah, and forgets to drink water, drinks a little few too many. Makes his, starts not feeling so well. Long story short, he goes over to the outdoor, like one of those concrete like bathrooms that has like the hole in the floor kind of.
Yeah.
That always smell really shitty.
Yep.
He decides he's gonna take a shit in there because he's not feeling good. He's either gonna shit or he's gonna puke, one of the two. And so he's in there sitting down and people are coming in and they're just fucking with him because there's no stalls, right? So there are every group of Marines in there watching this dude do his business. He finally gets tired of it, cleans himself, goes outside, starts feeling sick again, decides I'm not going back inside where everybody's gonna make fun of me and watch me take a dump. So he squats next to a building where some girls walk by, and he's already taken a dump on the ground, and some girls are walking by, and he gets nervous because he doesn't want to. His pants are still down. He doesn't want them to see him taking a dump. So his first reaction is, I'm just gonna sit down. And so he sits in his own shit on the ground and like waves at them as they walk by. It's obvious what they're doing. Realizes in his drunken stupor that he's covered in shit now. Makes his way back to the car. They had planned to camp out there that night, and he has no way to clean himself. So he starts cleaning himself with his buddy's sleeping bag. Buddy comes back to the car later that night to get the sleeping bag. It's covered in shit. Like this whole thing, this whole story plays out. It's learned to me later. That just made me laugh. I mean, I can't. Like,
oh my God, that's amazing.
I don't know what you do about that one. There's plenty more, I think. Like,
there's nothing you can do about it. You just, I mean,
the dude just
shit happens.
Shit on everything. At least he didn't throw up on everybody, but
oh my God,
that was one of those, like, I guess you had to be there.
No, I don't even. Chuck would have thrown up if he was there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's pretty rough. But after I left, second AA battalion, I didn't camp with you in Courthouse Bay, for all my trackers if they are on here. After I left, when I was there, we didn't really have anything crazy happen. After I left, reading Navy Times or whatever, or seeing the Navy Times on Facebook, these motherfuckers ended up getting busted. Like PMO busted some people out there. I think it was in track battalion with like fucking kilo of cocaine, a fucking dead hooker, and a fucking coffin rack, a fucking alligator.
That's like the plot of a movie.
The bathrooms. And I was like, the alligator, okay, we've caught some baby alligators and fucked around with them. So I'm like, that's on brand. But I'm like, a fucking hooker or like a stripper. We used to bring strippers in all the time, but none of them fucking died. We never got caught with any one of them in our fucking coffin rack.
I love that you're like, we never killed one. Jesus, what you rookies, amateurs?
Like, I mean, I've seen some crazy shit happen, but no one died. Yeah. Have you seen shit like that in your battalions?
No, probably not to that degree. No, I think I've seen some guys. Well, on our way to Afghanistan, I'm trying not to give whole name drop dudes. On our way to Afghanistan, we stop in Romania, and I learned about this all later, obviously.
Like I can't name drop because they're like first sergeants and gunnies.
Yeah. We fly to Romania. There's some kind of weird like civil unrest, something to do with the airplane. We have to stop, and we're going to stay in a hotel in Romania on our way to Afghanistan. Not a bad deal. Cool. We're going to be there all of 12 hours. So we get our rooms, and then the next day we fly out. I'm getting to Afghanistan, and my lead mortarman is just like, everybody's messing with him a little bit. So I'm like, what's the hell are they So I get the story that he got to Romania, and he was within 12 hours, he was able to find a hooker, get her to come to his room, and then
This guy's like Morgan Freeman in the Shawshank Redemption.
yeah,
Get anything.
like treated her like a princess, I guess. But like the sexual things that he was discussing that you just don't do with a hooker kind of things, like you don't put your mouth in places. But he had no shame. He did all these things, and he was proud about it. And I was like,
gosh,
am I supposed to like report to? I like had no idea what to do with this information, except I just
bro, you got herpes on your lip now.
don't come near me. Don't come near me.
Still proud about this. I'm like, dude, how did you even know what number to call? Like,
oh my gosh,
we got there at like midnight. He found a way, man. Like you give a young Marine like an inch.
Never underestimate a Marine and his penis.
I'm telling you, man, mind blowing.
They used to have competitions for hogging.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I remember the whole hogging stuff. I remember these. This made me think about this other one. Like we did some training when I was a young, like first lieutenant, still in infantry school, and we had the British Royal Marines training with us, and they were staying with us for like 10 weeks, and they're like, we had a break in the schedule, and we're all going to go out drinking. I went home to my wife and kid because I'm an older guy, but they all went out, and they do what's called swamp tree. Does this ring a bell? Maybe it does.
No, I never heard that.
You go to a bar apparently, and you go out on the dance floor, and these Brits would like find a chick that they want to dance with. They'd all dance next to her, and then they'd all pee on her feet. Called swamp tree, and so they all got kicked out of bars, and Northern Virginia area, very classy.
Super classy.
Super classy.
Yeah. We're waiting to do our raids training on Monday morning. We show up, like give the operations order. Helicopters are inbound. We're gonna board these helos, and these there's like 3 Brits that are just like scratching their crotch, and they're like not comfortable, and they just bolt. And they ran over to medical to get their bores punched, get checked.
Mhm.
Yeah, they all had chlamydia.
Fucking good time with the wizard.
Yeah, so we dropped like 3 of the Royal Marines. Man, those guys are wild, just insane.
After every 96 or 72, and then we can get into the closeout. But after every 96, 72, you'd have at least one dude be like, "Hey, I gotta go to BAS," and like, "You gotta go to see the fucking wizard," and he's like, "Yeah, all right."
Oh man, you're bringing up. So I got more, but
well, that's what ends up happening with this kind of stuff. Is like somebody says something, and inevitably it's like, "Oh, dude, that reminds me of this time," and then,
Right.
like it just snowballs like that. Anyway, well, Joe, we appreciate you coming back, and that's kind of why we leave this free form, because you never know where the conversation is going to take us. We wanted to follow up with what you're doing now, and it took us into some fun places, especially talking about, I think it's important to talk about the similarities between military deployments and law enforcement, shifts. I think that there's a lot more in common. And as I always say, we may not be on the same team, but we're all on the same side, and we're all trying to do the same thing. And so for those of you that are out there working patrol, you are defending the Constitution domestically. And for those of you who are out on deployment, you are defending constitutionally internationally. And either way, you're both protecting the rights of American citizens.
Yeah, we got each other's backs for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. So, now, Joe, did you have somebody, as you know, we allow our guests to dedicate the episode to somebody, and I'm not sure if you have a dedication or not, but if not, we can absolutely do one.
Yeah, I think I'll keep it vague, but I was kind of prepared for this. Chuck had mentioned, the Afghan withdrawal might be a topic, and I'd like to dedicate the episode to the 13 that didn't make it back from that completely fucked up withdrawal that we did. Which may be another topic for another.
No, I absolutely think that is another episode we need to have, because that is an atrocity and I don't say tragedy, it was an atrocity. It was caused by human error. It was something that didn't need to happen.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, no, I can offer my opinions obviously another day, but I think everybody, I think just dedicating it to those 13 would make me happy. And then I think those that fall in those organizations that are out there that support guys like me and you, Really focus on veteran resiliency, post-traumatic stress recovery, ongoing issue. I've lost 3 dudes to suicide since the last time we talked.
Wow.
And so it's an ongoing battle that we all own and we all have to fight.
And as for those of you that listen to locker room episodes as well, we just talked about for 2 episodes the art of self-medication, and we discussed the fact that the national rate of alcoholism and drug dependency is about 10% of the population, but when it comes to military and law enforcement, you're now talking about 25 to 30% of the population are involved in drug and alcohol use. And if you think that's not because of the job, you're sadly mistaken.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So, well, I appreciate it. Will you come back? And I actually am really looking forward to spending some time talking about the withdrawal from Afghanistan. And Chuck and I actually, this is something we, I think this dovetails nicely into what we were talking about launching. And as this show grows and as it expands, we've looked for other ways we can bring you content with Locker Room. And you know, now Chuck and I are talking about expanding into debriefing events, debriefing things that have happened, and both military and law enforcement. So we've talked about, Chuck, one of the things we discussed is the recent headlines in the last year or so of people who have been tased getting set on fire.
Yes.
Something
spontaneous combustion, or inadvertent combustion by
electrocution taser. That's one of the topics. But you know, military topics such as the withdrawal from Afghanistan and the way it was handled, because I think there's a lot of, on both sides, there's a lot of misconceptions about what happened. And what also is impressive is I think what people don't really know is the retired or inactive veteran community that jumped in and got involved, and guys like Chad Robichaud and Tim Kennedy, and they raised private money and did private things to extract people. I
know of Chad and his organization. I mean, I don't want to get into it too much, but like, you know, we complain often about the government's involvement too much in things they shouldn't be involved in, but this is one of the things they should have been involved in. And like private citizens are out there like, oh man. So I'll tease it with this. Like if we do come back on and we talk through it, I'll talk through my feelings about it. I'm not educated on, I wasn't there. So I don't want to wrongfully.
We can talk about public information. But we won't talk about private information.
Probably a whole show, right? Like I only know what you know that's on TV.
Yep.
But I can tell you how I felt about it and how my value as a human and how I'm morally wounded. Because of it.
Well, I think we should get that scheduled, Chuck. Let's do that as one of our topic and our debrief episodes. So I appreciate that, and we will dedicate to those 13 Rest Easy brothers. We've got it from here. Chuck, you have an announcement, and sisters, and Chuck, you have an announcement about merch. Finally,
so
ladies and gentlemen, and I think we got to get Joe one. We got to get Joe's size and send him one of the new ones.
Yeah, I'll get him a size medium.
Dude, clearly that dude. medium.
So, as you all know, as you all have known, I've been working on, and Tom and I have been working on getting you guys some shirts. They were going to be tank tops. We shit the bed on them.
It didn't happen in time.
Whatever.
Well, I mean,
supply shortages.
You had a baby being born.
All right.
And
there's been a lot of stuff, but what arrived at my house this week, which was this will air on a Monday, so last week, middle of the week, a box of shirts and some goodies inside of that shirt box. So they will be getting up on the website.
This design's like what, a year in the making?
Yeah. And you guys have voted on it before, so you guys kind of already know what it is. But if you forgot, it's pretty cool. It's I'll tease it with this: Ride Lightning. I've been told by the guy who made it, who's a friend of mine, he goes, "Oh, wow, that's pretty cool." And he's a cop, and he's like, "That's fucking badass." And I was like, "Awesome!" And
let's
so we
post
got some
a picture.
goodies.
Let's post a picture of the design when the episode comes out.
Okay, yeah, and I'm going to be working on getting up on the website. So I'll try for the weekend right before this airs to get it up, and if it's not up and running, I'll try to make sure that at least by Monday it's ready to go, it's live, and you guys can make your purchases. And every
And Joe,
shirt,
we'll send you the picture.
Love it.
yeah, every shirt comes with a special goodie inside that you don't need to pay for. And then there's going to be a reworking of pricing on the website just to give you guys better pricings as it gets colder. Because as you know, we have Whoopie hoodies still available, and they're taking up some space in my closets. And
we'll send Joe one of those.
We want to be able to come out with new stuff. So we need this shit gone. And we only have a few left. So yeah. And if you want to go support us, I normally have a whole spiel, but because it kind of went off the rails, booking.warstories. If you want to come on the show, it's booking.warstories@gmail.com. That is the email. If you follow us on Instagram and Facebook, go to the link in the bio. You can reach my email, the booking email, Tom's email for the mailbag. If you want to, send in like, hey, I would like you guys to talk about this topic, send it there. If you want to come on the show, booking.warstories@gmail.com. If you have a friend who you think would be a great fit for the show, booking.warstories@gmail.com. You can follow us on our Instagram and our Facebook, share our posts and our information. Our podcast is on all major streaming podcast platforms, as well as on our YouTube. So please go and support us there and follow us there, and follow the podcast pages. And then we're always looking for law enforcement veterans, cops, firefighters, first responders, EMS, paramedics, any of you guys, corrections officers. And I would really like to get some dispatchers on here. And I think Tom would too, because they deal with so much bullshit, and they have such a high stress environment, and it's all on the phone. They never get, a lot of times they never get clarity.
They don't get closure. They don't get clarity.
So
I think I got that covered. Let me see if I can get that covered.
I would like to get some of those on, and I know Tom would too. So
I've got
if
one
you want
for
to come, booking.warstories@gmail.com. Thank you for the support. Stay safe.
Joe, if you want to say anything, if you want to have any added words or messages to this discussion.
Yeah, I think just to you and Chuck, and then your listeners, you guys are our heroes. I mean, like what you're doing with this podcast is meaningful, and it has an impact, and it helps. Like this was nourishment for my soul to like just come on here and just bullshit with you guys about, it's like there's some value in talking with brothers about brotherly things, and I don't have a lot of people I can do that with. And weirdly enough, as strangers as we are, like, you guys are inside that circle with me, and I feel,
isn't that weird how that happens?
Yeah, I feel very confident to open up to you guys, and so I really thank you for that, because it does. This is helpful for me.
Well, we dig having you, and you're welcome anytime. Y'all, you shoot us an email and be like, hey, can I come on? We actually have to introduce Joe to Matt and Marco, and have like a, because Matt was enlisted in the Navy, and Joe was an officer in the Marine Corps, and we'll have to have them square off.
Oh, it'd be awesome.
We'll have Joe in the locker room, and but Joe, you got to promise, if you ever come on locker room, you have to bring the jokes. I don't know if you've ever listened to our episodes, but we always end with jokes, and so
I'll bring it. If I'm going up against the Navy, dude, I'll bring it.
Oh yeah, and he was in rare form. Fucker. Yeah, he was in rare form last week, man. We had to bleep
sometimes
one
we
of
hit
them.
it on the head.
Oh man,
thanks, Joe. We appreciate you.
Crayons. That'd be good.
Well, I mean, come on, that's the easy way. Like he's gonna have to come with something more creative than that. If there's the gay thing and the crayon thing, like. That's the low-hanging fruit. We'll get that out of the way, and then we'll get creative.
Right.
We'll go after blue camouflage uniforms in the ocean.
Oh God, that's okay. But you know what? You two will hold hands on that issue, because he was in the Dungaree Navy, and so he looks at the blueberries and just goes, "What the fuck happened to my Navy?"
I remember those fucking stupid things came out, and I was like, "What the fuck is this shit?"
No, he had a dog bowl and a Cracker Jack. There
we go. All right,
yeah, for sure. Anyway, so thanks, Joe. Again, until our next episode, come home with your shield or armor.